figure out your resources to determine what your profit margins are, your revenues, your cost of goods sold. On a local level, it's great to know it on a national, but in what I do for a living, like you and I, Brad, will never be in competition. And even the folks here in town, Morgan from Construction to Styles, a mutual friend, we are not in competition. We very much could be in competition, but we support one another and we collaborate, which is different. But I did a lot of work early on to figure out, pull statistics through a local data to figure out what general, design build or construction or remodeling companies were reporting on their tax returns for. I couldn't see who the businesses were, so this library was able to compile a lot of these statistics for us, and it's for small business owners to sort of launch a business.
Welcome to episode 155 of the AFT Construction Podcast. And today we welcome Katie Kath, who's a partner at Jkath Design Build in Minnesota. And Jkath does their own interior design. They do their own construction. They've also had their own cabinetry line. And that's how they got started in the business. And the background, Katie's been in the restaurant industry and now in the construction industry. And they just launched their own vanity collection where they're selling retail vanities from their amazing designs to the public. And we dive into just the complexity of business, running these three operations and now a fourth, and how they play a role together and how they work, collectively, but also the difficulty between all of them. And we dive down employee retention and systems and processes and what we can do as business owners to create a great culture, a great brand, a great product. So without further ado, let's get started. This past May, we had an amazing Contractor Coalition Summit. This was in Nashville with Nick Schiffer from Menace Builders and Morgan Molitor from Construction to Style out of Minnesota. And we are now up for our second round of the Contractor Coalition Summit that'll be in Huntington Beach from Sunday, November 6th through Wednesday, November 9th. Go to contractorcoalitionsummit.com, sign up, register. We have some amazing partners that'll be there sponsoring the event, amazing attendees that have already signed up. It's limited seating. We're only allowing 30 to attend. And again, this will be all things pricing, profitability, contracting, client expectations, scheduling, and of course, marketing and social media. Everything that we wish we knew in our business from the very beginning is all going to be wrapped up into just a couple days. So we'll see you there in Huntington Beach in November. So welcome to the AFT Construction Podcast. We have Katie Kath with us. She's a partner at Jkath Design in Minnesota. So welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on. I was fortunate to be out there in Minnesota at BizCom last year, and I've known you and your husband for a while now, and, we were able to formally spend a little bit more time in person, at breakfast, and at the event and stuff. And you have some exciting news too, because I wanted to bring you on. Not only you're an expert in construction, but now you decided to find some more complexity in your business as if it's not complex enough, and now starting your own vanity collection. So how's that going?
Yeah, great. So today is launch day. So we flipped the switch, last night around dinner time and had the website go live. And I think our biggest goal today was just to have it go live without any major glitches. And I think we accomplished it.
No glitches?
No glitches. All is going well. And there's some good traffic moving in and out of the site today, which is great. But yeah, I might be getting ahead of myself, but that was our goal, was just to get it live. And then we have quite a bit of a marketing plan rolled out for the rest of Q4, hopefully to set up a really successful Q1, Q2 of next year with this launch.
So what's the idea behind it? Just to give a little background, you're building, right? You and your husband are building. We'll get into some of that a little bit later, but now you're starting a product line, which is, although they kind of play in the same market a little bit, they're completely different scopes of work and businesses. They're run differently. And so this is extremely complex as if the contracting side isn't complex enough, right?
Right. So our business was founded on the roots of custom cabinetry. My husband cut his teeth in that industry years ago and had left his corporate job to basically launch into this industry. And so that was with the custom cabinetry side. And quickly the renovation or the high-end remodels that we do now grew from that. And we sort of lost sight a little bit on the cabinet side. We still own our own cabinet shop, and we've always provided all of our own custom cabinetry for all of our client work. And then here and there, we'll weave in work for peers, people within industry locally. We'll do some cabinet projects for them as our schedule allows. But in the last few years, it really hasn't allowed for us to do anything other than our own work. And then I'm sort of jumping all over, but at one point, I'd say maybe 5-6 years ago, we had some things that came up with the shop. It pressed us, and we were considering selling it and getting rid of it. I think to your point of the complexity, it felt like the renovation side was growing. It was gangbusters, and then we just had this weight of how to run this cabinet shop and be profitable and keep a team in there, the craftsmen, the creative, the energy that we needed for it. And I don't know, an employee sort of fell in our lap back then that was unfortunately no longer with us today, but was just exactly what we needed, somebody to come in and help run and manage that shop and take it to the place that we've been. But that also became known earlier this year that we needed to go further with it as we're getting ready to launch this new product line. So we've since reinvented our entire team again in the shop. But
well, it's interesting because if I interrupt you, Katie, what's interesting about this is that, the more I speak with business owners that are kind of in both fields, and before we get to the cabinet line, but, they're self-performing a scope of work and they're acting as a general. Now, the advantage is you have a little bit more control, right, of supply chain and product line, especially with cabinetry. That's such a critical path moment in the build. Like cabinetry make or breaks the schedule and deadline and quality. And there's just so many elements of cabinetry. But at the same time, you can almost cheat a little bit. And what I mean is you're like, okay, I got to self-perform the cabinetry, so I'm kind of doing it at cost or at minimal because I'm moving everything to the remodel side or maybe vice versa. It's going the other way. And that's where it can be a little complex trying to run both because they're both run totally different.
Yeah, completely. And you're right. I mean, we've managing that piece being that it's our own, we own that sub part of what we do. We can do a lot of things out of order right now, which we're not really proud of, but we have to in some cases.
But you have to.
Yeah, we have to. And it's been it's saved us in many cases in the last few years. We've been able to, just to meet countertop measure. We can work weekends. Everyone's on overtime. We can put in just some of the things we do, put in just, the base cabinets, measure, take them out, go get them finished, bring them back in. It's all sorts of extra work. It's not a smart way of doing business, but in the, the half a dozen scenarios where we've had to pull out all the stops, we definitely pull them out. And I think it's really, aside from running the business piece to it, that custom cabinetry piece has really identified our niche of who we are and what we do within our local market. And so many of our clients come to us today because of that cabinetry piece that we have and just being able to, I think, control the outcome, the craftsmanship, the local piece to it. All cabinetry is local wherever you are to some sense, but unless you're, not doing custom. But that now, if we didn't have that, we've had in our own bottleneck, we have said, well, we can do your project, but our cabinet shop can't keep up. But that's okay, because if you don't really want these cabinets, we can bring in a different cabinet shop. And it's the handful of times we've tried that, our clients have said, well, no, that's why we're here. We're here for your cabinet shop. We're here for that craftsmanship. We're here for the unique cabinet design that you bring to construction. And our tagline, the things all over our website say that everything is down to 1/8 of an inch. And we're really rooted in the foundation of the cabinet design is really how we have grown our renovation businesses on the principles of what it takes to run a cabinet shop and the level of detail to a fault. Sometimes it's like you can't unsee it. You walk into a project and it's just like, oh my gosh. Will the client
so do you see that,
it, or is it just us?
Yeah. So do you see that changing now? Because now that you have your own product line, right, that you're selling, do you see that changing client demand for the remodel side to self-perform? Is it going to enhance it or stabilize it a little bit more?
Yeah, we're hoping the product line serves maybe a different market than our renovation clients, which really are only, depending on the size, maybe it's 8 to 12 clients a year that we do on the big renovation side. We'd still love to be able to develop any custom vanity, for sure kitchen cabinetry, dinettes, mudrooms, unique standalone pieces of furniture that are really unique to their home and their project. So the vanity line is some sort of a combination between the two. And then, of course, if the project grows or we're doing more, in a lot of these homes we might be doing 3, 4, 5 bathrooms, that would be a really great opportunity for us to grab a few things from the vanity collection and maybe plop them into a few of the different spaces, kids' bathrooms, potentially powder room, basement bathrooms. I imagine the primary suite, these vanities are definitely primary suite qualified. They're handcrafted, they're all vanities we've used in primary suites, but I imagine in our current client work, just to preserve that relationship and that partnership to work together, we'll start from scratch and create something really new and cool that hasn't been installed somewhere else.
So you're pretty involved with the designs as well, right, in the projects that you do?
Yes.
So again, another arm here. So you're doing cabinetry, you're doing design, you're doing the construction, wearing all those hats, and now I would imagine that side's complex, but it's helped you now as you're starting to think about trends and product line and creating a vanity to write for sale to the end user.
Yeah, exactly. So you nailed it. Those are the three services we provide. Design, sometimes design only, which we're not actually following through on the build or renovation side. We do a lot of design only for new construction. The cabinet piece, cabinet design, cabinet only projects, which are opening that up a little bit more as we're getting caught up in our shop. And then, of course, the renovation side. So they're all intertwined. I mean, our clients that we end up going into contract with, we feel like they're really getting a huge, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like a
bang for the buck, ton of value.
It's all in one house, and we're advocating for them and from a lot of different perspectives.
So now as you come down, okay, this is a total separate company, right? Because you're operating, you launched this today, we're live. As you're thinking about the process to start your own line, were there complexities in going down this road? Because you have to start thinking about, which I know you've done. Are you selling business to business? Like, are you selling to other builders and developers and designers? Are you selling to the end consumer, B2C? How does it work? Are you doing a little bit of both?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Initially, the inquiries have come from the consumer. So it's through social media, it's Instagram, Pinterest. The inquiries have been coming in for years since we really launched into those the digital marketing space of who made the vanity and how can we get it. But we've always just, and every once in a while we'll bite and say, well, what are you interested in? What's your budget? Where do you live? And then we put together some numbers, and it's usually no one responds. Like, I'm not spending $4,000 or $5,000 for a vanity. So then we figured, once sort of the pandemic hit and people couldn't get vanities, that inquiry just went crazy. I mean, we were getting them daily, if not multiple times within a day, of different people looking for custom cabinetry work. And a lot of people are local, but maybe not to the point where we'd still be able to install, or maybe we could. There were still some complications in it, but as it evolved, I think it's become a little more B2B. Just as we've gone through some pricing scenarios, we hired a consultant to really figure out, because I'm not in retail. I am now. As of today, I'm in retail. Mm-hmm. Prior to today, I was not in retail, so we brought in an expert to help us really understand the different paths of revenue. But we're not including right now countertops, plumbing, or cabinet hardware. So really, it's probably more of a B2B. However, I think we all know the end user on Instagram, if we just use that for an example, they're savvy. I mean, they know how to find remnant countertops, or they want to, or everybody kind of wants to pick out their own hardware. It's the fun part. I mean, I think we are talking a little bit of a DIY client that's just doing a bathroom renovation. They don't have a cabinet team. So there's a lot of people that say it could really be both. But Brad, I have no idea. I think we'll find out. I mean, really,
I know we just launched today, right?
Yeah, so. I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll know more hopefully this time next year. But we're hoping we tried to price it. We're hoping to hit both markets. I do think, though, if we really want to continue to be successful in the B2B, we will need to come up with some sort of a strategy with a trade discount or some other way to get into, the designer and architect's inbox. So we're working.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, because I've had like Emily and Dan Clark on, and they, very similar to you, where they're doing a lot of design, right? They're doing a lot of the building themselves, very similar to your operation. And, they get the same thing, a ton of inquiries. So they're like, hey, let's go on. We could build, at least for, if we're not hired just to design someone, we're not going to release all the, their product and colors and everything else. But on the stuff we're doing, spec builds and, self-designing, we can say, hey, you can buy this package. Like, you can, if you love this pantry, then you can have the cabinet stain color, the flooring spec, the lighting spec, wallpaper, whatever. Here's everything. You buy it, quick transaction done. And essentially, Katie, that's what you're looking at. That you have these amazing designs, right? You have this amazing execution, this amazing product already, and then people are saying, "Well, I want that. I like what Katie's doing, right? Jkath is doing." So, and now it's just another way where you can say, "Okay, perfect. You can just buy this vanity. Here you go. Here's the location, and let them have at it."
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it's a brand that's exactly it. We're hoping to get our brand expanded into people's homes without having to go through, the all-in custom route. And we're happy to, if we haven't hit it with our website or the offerings online, if people are looking for a version of what we offered, but maybe plus or minus a few inches, that was another hard piece. We had to design. We only launched 24 5 different vanities with 24.
Only 24?
Only 24.
That's a lot.
I think we had close to 50 in the early stages of this. And we just thought of all we wanted to meet everyone's needs. And then as it just became really complicated to get to the launch date, we said, what if we just cut it in half and then we can always grow and add additional options? Or really ideally, I'd love to be able to remove something that's not working and maybe use our audience through social or some other avenue to help design, or maybe, vote on a favorite, or maybe come up with naming a new vanity. I mean, there's just so many opportunities, I think, to keep us relevant from a marketing standpoint, which, again, if we're talking to people here in the industry, I mean, it's just another way for us to be interesting and to have a reason to get into inboxes, and be it a vanity or not, it's a conversation that we're having. I think a lot about our counterparts who open shops online, and there's, doing pillows and housewares and some of the other cool things that they're doing to expand their brand. I feel like it's sort of the same intent. It's, no one's going to retire off selling pillows, maybe, but is it just another way to have a conversation about their brand, getting their brand in people's homes, but just getting more awareness, more presence online?
Okay, so you were just talking about, from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, it's just another, avenue to stay relevant, continue to have a conversation online about who we are, our brand, creating traffic back to our website, creating a brand, right? It's a brand. So maybe the next homeowner who lives in our in our neighborhood that wants to do a $500,000 or $1 million renovation, we feel maybe even more relevant now that we've got this national product line. A lot of our clients, we aren't in a pricing war as like we used to be when we were trying to get our feet wet and get a name made for us within our community. It was just constantly bidding against. We're one of 3, builders, so to speak, right, providing a bid. And I feel as if we've evolved now where people are hiring us for the brand and the quality of work that we've established within our community. Pricing, of course, matters. It always will. But it feels a little different now. And that was always been a huge goal of mine.
So you mentioned, as well as you're thinking about the product line, okay, we have to figure out passive revenue, and we could get into some of the specifics there, not the revenue side, but just as building this operation. But you mentioned you had an expert come in, right, that's consulting you through this. Like, how did you find this mentor consultant, the expert, to come in and say, okay, this is how we do it, this is how you operate in this space?
So she was in front of me the whole time, and I find that happens a lot. It's people we already know, and an opportunity came where she sort of launched out and started doing her own consulting, and I've known her for years. I also knew that the very first time I met her, she reminded me of a younger version of myself, and she doesn't necessarily have a specific, doesn't specialize in, she does have a retail background, but this project management is probably a little bit more for specialty. So I just came to her and was venting and said, I've got this goal. It's been dragging on, and my team, they're in it, but they're busy. I can't get them out of the field or away from the shop or to put their tools down to get into the meat of what we're doing and make edits and reviews. So in budget or not, I knew that this was part of the investment I needed to make, and it would be better for me to spend my time on the vision and less on the day-to-day decisions that needed to happen, which I wouldn't do it any other way.
So how do you, the back end support in this really where it can get complicated? As you mentioned, you have a website that's launching, there's payments going through the website, you're tracking inventory, production, there's a whole back end side that's outside of, as you mentioned, your specialty, Katie, that is, designing and quality and cabinetry, but now you have the operational side. How has that been? I know it's day one here, but, setting up that aspect to, okay, make sure our back end's up and running, and then now we just have to perform and produce.
So similarly, the consultant that I hired, we put her on retainer for the end of the year to essentially manage all of that for us and train our team. There's a few people that are support within our office to help them understand the ordering process. We'll see where it goes. So in the new year or beyond or sooner, if this takes off at a level we didn't anticipate, that's just another position we need to hire and fulfill within our company. But I personally do not plan to manage, all of the things that come in, the questions, the Q&A. I will for a little while, just as I'm closest to it. But again, we're creating a system that we can hand off to 1 or 2 people within our company to just manage. And to your point, our offices are very divided. So I'm in the design space, but we are attached to our cabinet shop right now. So, I mean, even just, we can get it all buttoned up here, but then how are we conveying to the team? And I mean, I might be a creative, but they're especially creative over there. I mean, they don't even take time to sit down and look at a computer. So how do we create a process, and how do we do it digitally, really, is the goal, so we can get everyone, we've got an engineer that helps run our shop too, so he'll be critical in the communication piece and the process, and just figuring out when those orders come in and the queue, and make sure we're managing our currently stated lead time of 4 to 6 weeks.
That's great. That lead time's amazing. It's much better than what we're getting elsewhere. So
I know. Yeah. I mean, of course, volume will shift, right? If again, dozens of orders come in, I mean, we'll manage that on a order by order basis. But that lead time, that's what it is today. And then, as we, head into the new year, that might change a little bit.
So I know I may be premature asking this question, but of course you mentioned that, okay, we plan to have around 50-ish, right, for vanities at some point. Now we have 24, and they're great designs. Do you plan on expanding this market, or is it kind of a wait and see approach? As you start thinking about other, mudroom pieces or special furniture pieces, maybe kitchen potentially, kind of where are you looking at scaling, or saying, hey, let's just play in our space and, know that we can be really competitive here?
So we're not done. I had a phone call this morning. I won't say with who, but we are in very serious conversation to expand the hardware component. So I don't think so much on the cabinet side, but evolving that actual vanity. So adding hardware. So if we can, two things. Can we just sell the hardware as a la carte to go with? A la carte. People can buy the hardware, and that can serve all of our cabinet work, right? Kitchen cabinets, mudroom, anything else. People could also come to our website and purchase hardware if all they want is hardware, but they've at least seen an install. They can come to our feed and see an install of that hardware in a variety of projects. But more importantly, can we have that hardware as an add-on to the vanity, and then our team would pre-drill and put the hardware on, which, if there's a false panel situation, it gets complicated if you don't have a builder or a cabinet team handling that for you. So the hardware piece is next, and I would say I'd love to have that available in the very first part of the new year, but I know how long it took to get here, so maybe a year from now, if not sooner, we'd love to be able to add hardware. And then maybe I'm open to countertops. We've got a great relationship with some great countertop brands and within the community, so there might be a conversation to be had if that, but I think those bigger pieces will wait to see if that's an ask and if that's something that we need. I think if we're B2B, the designers might prefer to continue to make those selections, but if we become more B2C, then it could be an optional. It could be with countertop, without countertop, so all sorts of customization, and we're here for that growth for sure. Beyond vanities, we haven't even talked about it.
Which is probably a good idea, and especially with the hardware side and getting the vanity side up and running. Because as you mentioned, I mean, it's, what's going through my head as you're talking about this, like the complexity of running a business, right? There's so much to it. You understand, employees and hiring and clients. And, before we start recording, we're talking off air, just, we're trying to hit these dates for clients. It's so volatile, right? It's moving. It's very fluid with supply chain, product. I mean, we're at the mercy of so many different people. There's a million components in these houses, and not everything's readily available, right? So you and I are just doing this firsthand. But now you're opening up this channel, so I'm thinking, okay, it's one thing to get the website up and running. It's another thing to get production, right, and design, which essentially you have because you know this business. But then you have like the customer service support, right, and shipping and freight and making sure everything aligns right. And if the customer has a question, the phone number to call. And so it's all these channels as well. I mean, I know it's just day one and you haven't had to go down that road, but eventually, you're going to, as business expands, that's another element, right, that you get to add to your plate because you're not busy enough, right, Katie? So
I know, and I think you're looking at customer service right now. I'm going to put that hat on. But I will. My husband and I, we will, until we figure it out, right? That's how we've always been. We will take the emails, we will take the phone calls, we'll make it right until we can't. And then we'll bring in that support person to help manage. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's scary. Those are the biggest reasons why it's taken us this long to launch. I think for a long time we said, well, it's not worth it. We don't want to ship, then it's damaged. We can't go on site to do a final field measure. All of the things that we've built our brand on, which is that our tagline is live in the details. we're losing a little bit of that by, being willing and vulnerable enough to make a product and wrap it up, create it, and put it on a truck. So it feels vulnerable. It feels a little scary. So I can't tell you for sure that this won't be a failure.
No.
I mean, right? If that's all this becomes is a complaint scenario, which I think is very real in today's market, then I don't know, maybe that's not where our bread and butter is. But we feel really hopeful that the volume will help support, right, the very few, hopefully occasional times that we need to troubleshoot the quality stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's part of any business, right? There's because just like anybody, it's a general contractor, running a remodel or a new build. I mean, we're not doing everything ourselves, and so you're banking on, a good team behind you. Same as you freight. You could have everything perfect, QC'd, shipped out, and then who knows, right? As it gets to the user. But outside of that, what's interesting is, I know from your side, Katie, as you mentioned, the process, right? And you said the process, the organization. I have engineers that are very technical. We're right by our academy shop. We're going to lay this out. Understanding and running this operation, how does that change your focus on the build side? And what I mean is, so many times in building, we may not have the processes. We may not have the details. We may not have the structure. You know how to run it, right? Your husband may know how to do it. But, as that telephone game goes down the line, that process is really key, especially running a furniture company as opposed to, just a general contracting company.
Well, that's been a huge struggle for us this year, and that, we don't need to transition there now, but that goes back to a staffing issue and retaining the right team members that are here for the process. I'm super passionate about a process because as much as I love what I'm doing, I want everybody on my team to be able to do what I'm doing and then some, actually. I don't want to be the only person in the house that knows how to, sell a client, meet a client, help with some bidding, put all the, do all of the pre-construction, all the design work, all the follow-up, the reselects. I want every single person on my team to have a very specific role, be able to do that just as well and even better than I can. As a matter of fact, there's a number of skill sets that I don't have. I don't have the technical drawing training. I can't touch CAD or SketchUp. I can't do any chief architect. I can't do any of the software. And I made a decision a few years ago. We had gotten to the point where we had outsourced all of that and we really needed to bring it in-house. And so it was either me, hire it in, or continue to outsource. And that really just sort of began the immediate growth of our team. And we grew pretty quickly once we started adding more and more people, both in front of house and back of house. I come from a hospitality industry, so we're front of house, back of house. But that process piece is super critical. And I feel as if every Monday when we have our team meetings, we're continue to change it. And I think, and it not good or bad, it's just it needs to be tweaked all the time, and it's always based on what did we learn last week, where did we fall short, what hard conversation did we have to have, and how can we weave that into our process. Either maybe we're just putting it on the table and talking about it and being aware of it. It doesn't necessarily drive change, or sometimes it's I think we can actually make a really quick tweak in a spreadsheet, or how we're exporting something or sharing with clients, or how as a team we're communicating. We use a project management software too for just internal communication. We've gotten really clear on how, we're big fans of Buildertrend as well, how we use Buildertrend, external versus internal. So we've created sort of a tree of processes and sort of, if you have a situation, where do you go? Okay, you go over, you go to this funnel, and then if this comes up, then where do you go? So we sort of try to funnel out our problems, if you will, as best as possible, so we can all get to the same end point of here's how we solve it, or here's who we go to problem solve. I mean, this is what we do every day. I say we get up, and when we're interviewing people, I tell people it looks pretty online, and it is really fun, and it is a very rewarding industry, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But what we do every single day is solve problems. That's what we do. We get up every day and we have to solve a problem. And that's hard. I mean, you're having hard conversations, you're disappointing people, you're not meeting expectations, you're not who you lived up to be online. That's a fun
how's
one.
That gone? Because I've gotten that.
Yeah. Or, so my biggest fear now too with the Vanity line is that our clients might see, or potential clients might see, that I'm distracted.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I didn't respond to certain emails maybe quick enough because, oh, clearly Katie's been distracted with launching. And our current clients are so amazing. I can't imagine any of them would feel that way. But it's a little bit of PTSD from feedback you've gotten from clients in the past where it's like it just never leaves you that, I don't know. But I always like to think too, like, gosh, if we had only all had one client or one house you were building or one house you were remodeling, we wouldn't be in business. We wouldn't be doing the work we're doing if we only had one client at a time.
Well, it's that same.
We
yeah,
need to be
and
able to.
if I interrupt you, Katie, I mean, it's that same analogy. And the way I heard it is like, are you running a table at the restaurant or are you running the restaurant? And from the restaurant business, I mean, we could speak about your history coming into this, but if I go into, I have to understand that the waiter or waitress that I may have, they're serving other tables, there's other people, but because of that, I'm getting good value, good food, ideally, right, if I'm at the right place. But I'm paying, 20% tip, 25% tip. I'm not paying the cost for the entire, if I'm renting out the entire movie theater or the entire restaurant, that's a totally different cost for the food, the operation, everything involved. Same thing, that, it's really important that we set those expectations. And I've had that where clients, like, we kind of sat down at the end and they're like, Brad, and thankfully, I mean, it's the only time it's happened, but it was pretty defeating, right, that day where they're sitting down like, oh, we anticipated this going this way. And, through that conversation, I could see just the breakdown of communication with my team and the client. Some mistakes we made, but also some unrealistic expectation from the client side that I'm like, okay, well, how do I evolve? How do I combat this in the future, internally and externally with our clients to set a clear expectations? Because so many times, like, this is where the breakdown is. We're just not clear with them, or I'm not. And, I'm kind of a optimistic, sky's rosy kind of guy anyways when I'm selling the job and what we can do. And, I have to be careful that we can actually perform what I say we're going to do.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And the communication piece is huge right now. And I continue to, encourage and coach our team that, and even with clients, right, before they even sign contract, I'm very, very transparent with them and stating, it's going to be messy. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to be your best friend, and you're going to want us barbecue in your backyard, and we're done one week, and the next week you're going to be calling your friends, wondering if you should have hired a different builder. But hopefully that can all be remedied with how we're communicating any delays or setbacks it's unless it's our fault, right? Unless, we have done something to cause a direct conflict. That's a different conversation, but a lot of it is we're just the messengers. We're just at the mercy of the availability, the lead times, the labor shortages, everything else. So, but yeah, and that's where we're really thankful. Not that this is a plug for Buildertrend. They haven't paid either one of us to do this podcast, or maybe they paid you. I don't know. They haven't paid me. But we use Buildertrend to a fault. It's like you have like our updates to our clients and loading the images, and it's saved us in so many ways to just be able to get in front of our clients when we don't have time to make a phone call or see them in person.
It's huge. And another plug for Buildertrend, what's interesting is we had a client from I should probably be careful where they're from, but they're from the Midwest. And long story short is they had, summer's hot. They don't want to be here in the summer, ideally, and we're building their house. It's an amazing project. And in May, they had planned to come out a few times, different points. And because of Buildertrend and because we do these Friday videos where every Friday we have a group text chain. So we have our superintendent, our director of operations, myself, the project coordinator, so kind of the AFT team. Then we have designer on board, the architect, and the client. So it's kind of this group text of like 10-ish people. So every Friday they go through and they do this video, minute long, 2 minutes long, just here's what was done, here's what's upcoming, next 3 week look ahead. Super casual. They don't have to do this selfie where they're holding up, but they just walk through and give them a video tour. And our client's like, Brad, because those videos on like Buildertrend, I'm not coming out to October. So, they didn't come out for 5 months because they could see the operation. And that's where, it's really assisted us, just technology and information to say, hey, here's what's happening, and then just be in front of it for the client. It's been really, and so now we've taken that same strategy with like every project we do.
Yeah, it's so smart.
For those of you that have listened to the podcast, you know how big of a fan we are of Buildertrend and that we have used this software for the last 4 years. And many of the guests that we've brought on the podcast are also Buildertrend users. And in this day and age, with as busy as all of us are in construction, as complicated as it is with escalation pricing, lead times, tracking, organization, all of us need a good project management software to help simplify and organize our business. And there are a couple features that we love a ton about Buildertrend. And one is the owner portal. The other is the daily logs. And these are features that we use daily, right? Half of my clients are out of state. And as an owner, it is so imperative how we communicate with our clients, with our team, with our customers. And through Build a Trend, this allows us that quick connection. They can check at any time. We can communicate with them. We're up to date. This has actually helped us win jobs, win projects because of that organization, especially at pre-construction. And Build a Trend also offers a ton of service on the back end, training and understanding and workshops, to help us use their software effectively. They also have the podcast, The Building Code. To learn more, head to buildertrend.com/AFT to get a 60-day money-back guarantee on your Build a Trend account. That's 60 days to make sure you love this product with no pressure, and I know you will. This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows. When it comes to building homes at AFT, almost every project has Pella Windows. And they've been just an incredible partner of ours. And locally, Sammy and Adam, they are not only amazing business partners behind us, but they are super close friends. And I speak on the podcast all the time about the importance of relationships, right? Relationships with our customers, with our vendors, with our suppliers. Because at the end of the day, I'm only as good as those that help our brand and assist us in our projects to take it from the ground up all the way to completion. And if we didn't have partners such as Pella, there's no way we'd be who we are today. Over the years, we've built this amazing relationship. When we call them or email them, they respond. They're quick. Their company culture, their integrity, their honesty, they are always there to do what's right for us and the customer. They can do anything from small replacement projects to large custom homes and even multi-million-dollar commercial projects. And also, when you think about their product line, they can do ultra contemporary, historical preservation, and large traditional projects. So for anyone, any scale, any size, they're the ones to call. They're here local. They have an amazing Instagram. Make sure and give them a follow to see what they're doing. So if you need windows and doors, give Sammy and Adam a call. We stand behind Pella. We love what they do, their culture, their brand, and especially their quality. And if you want to learn more about Pella Windows, check our show notes. We'll have everything tagged there so you can give them a follow and have their contact information to reach out. Right. So let me ask you this though, Katie, because going back to the expectation side, and we're kind of alluding to this. I mean, some clients can be more challenging than others for a lot of reasons, and maybe it's just you and I still trying to figure this business out as we are. But I was sitting down in a business development, interviewing for the project, and it's the first time I've ever been asked. The client's like, Brad, this sounds great. Your process and Build a Trend and whatever. Everything you're doing, and architects, designers. Okay, that's fine. What should I know? What is there going to be a time I don't like you? When are things going to go sideways? What should I expect? What's going to be difficult for me? And it was interesting because it kind of put me on the spot. I wasn't really prepared for them to ask that aspect. Where would they inhibit the progress of the project, or where would I be inhibiting the progress, right? And it made me reflect, in one of my comments, and I've since refined this because I have a lot of answers to this. We have this emotional roller coaster document that I've shared with others, that we give to our clients in the sales process. I talked to them that, hey, you got to feed the meter. I'm not a bank. I really need you to prompt pay. That'll allow me to pay and get product, and got to feed this thing, right? And so there's a lot of things I can set. Have you ever been asked that, or how would you answer that based on your experience where, clients asking you, okay, Katie, everything seems great to hire Jkath Design, but where are things going to go wrong, especially right now in this market?
So I don't know if a client has ever asked that in the onset, but I think our biggest challenge is that a lot of what we do, we don't always know until, because in the renovation side, I won't say it's harder than your job.
No, they're hard. I do some renovations. They're really hard because you just...
But it's a different level of complication, right? And we're in homes, so we're here in some historic parts of the Twin Cities. We're in homes that are now aging well over 100 years old. We don't have, we get excited if we can go into a house that has sheetrock in it. What's sheetrock? Give us some sheetrock. We can do this. So I think for us, as much pre-planning as we do, especially on the design side, some of the things just have to be put on hold until we can get into discovery. And then in that discovery phase, it can get really challenging to get clients to make decisions, see it the way we're describing it to them. It's just that communication and then, now in the meantime, Instagram is inserted again, and Houzz and Pinterest boards are back in their feed. So now they've got all these new exciting ideas, which are beautiful, but it's a lot of that start-stop. And then a lot of having to reset expectations of we can do that, but we need to stop construction. And nowadays, when we stop construction, we had an unfortunate situation where we installed beautiful stone tile in a project, and the client didn't like it, which is fine. But gone are the days of taking out the tile, selecting a new one, and putting in the new tile as soon as you get it. I mean, our tile sub left. He went on to other work. And we lost him for weeks. And then at that point, we have other people we can bring in, but still everyone's booked out. They didn't have this project on their calendar to begin with. So we lost a lot. I mean, we lost weeks of time. And without the tile in, we couldn't get our cabinets in. We couldn't measure for countertops. I mean, and this was just one bathroom and a whole house renovation, but the whole thing had to go on hold, right? I mean, we're not going to install all the other cabinets and measure for countertops and that. I mean, so we wanted to do it all at once. And so that's that start-stop conversation that I would really love to have with people up front. And we have in our contract a deadline of when all decisions need to be made in order for us to stay as best as we can onto the schedule that we've presented to the clients at contract. We don't review that deadline, and we don't typically have to bring it out and reference it to clients, but we've definitely had situations where we have had to say, you are definitely holding this up. So yeah, I'm trying to remember if that was your question.
Yeah, it was. I mean, really to that point, I mean, the start and stop. No, that's a good example, Katie, because I think as builders, right, which essentially we're discussing right now, and designers, is that, where we do have to be careful with the client is a couple things. We don't want to spend their money for them, and we don't want to make financial decisions for them. Like where I've, early in my career, I saw this where the client, again, to your example, they're stopping the train. This train's moving. We have a date, we're trying to hit the schedule, and they come and see the house, and they're like, we want to add this massive window here. We want to optimize these views. And my superintendent's like, you don't want to do that. It's going to cost this, and it's going to do this. And the client just told them, don't tell me what I want to do with my time and money. And it was like, okay. So, as builders, we have to understand that there's a delicate approach, that it's really important that we communicate, hey, this train's moving. However, we're happy to do whatever you want. You're a client. We want you to be happy. This is a big decision. It's better to make this now than later. Let's think through this. Here's cause and effect, right? We can do this change. It's going to be X dollars. It's going to cost this time frame. And you let them decide. Say, here's what it's going to be. But it's really important that you and I understand that the days are gone where I can just rip out this wall and have a window here. I know that I've been having this window for 8 months right now, how things are going. So I have to, I have to understand the context of what's happening in the current economy and climate, and convey that, and then let the owner make the decision, because now they're empowered to do so, and it's their baby, and we just have to figure it out from there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's just different right now.
So let me ask you this, because you alluded to this. I think what we're all dealing with is you think about employee retention and hiring and company culture, and it's a really tough business. I think it's really hard for even some of our employees to understand what they're up against. Everything looks great on Instagram. I follow Jkath, and everything's perfect. Designs are amazing. Quality's perfect. It looks like there's no issues behind the scenes, but we all know the complexity of dealing with subs and suppliers and clients. I mean, it can wear, how have you looked at strategizing, with your in-house team to keep morale up, keep them motivated, and again, keep that one happy family going at work?
Well, it's big and small. I mean, it's small in that I look at our project coordinator. She does some admin things for us too. And I have just said to her this summer, I need you to go to the grocery store and make sure that we have a plethora of food and snacks and water. We can't ever run out of toilet paper, whatever it is that we need, just the basics. So that, we never used to think about that. I mean, and somebody would maybe throw a text like, hey, that office is out of toilet paper, someone pick it up on the way. But I even feel like that now. It's like we can't impose like we used to. So even though we're a small business, so just, taking that next level and having every time we have a staff meeting, is like going around taking a Starbucks order for everybody and bring it in. And so just small culture pieces. We had a company picnic this summer where we invited everybody into our backyard, and we had a huge catered event, and just, no work, just get to know you, icebreaker questions. We're have everyone's picking out a new pair of, work boots right now online that we're getting for the team. Just little things to hopefully, maybe every quarter or every other month, we're just doing small nuggets that are low impact to our bottom line, but hopefully big impact when it comes to culture. On a bigger scale, everything for me goes back to the process, and any new hire that we bring on in the team, if they cannot identify and get on board and either contribute, even make change to a process, they will not be successful, period. And if they don't like the process, I'm very clear about that too. This might not be the process. We're still a growing company. We're scaling, we're learning, we're evolving. But then bring to the table what you think would work, and let's talk about it. Let's figure out something that works for everybody. And I believe our turnover that we've experienced this year has been solely based on process and us maybe not identifying within certain employees that they were ready for that type of process. Because I think what we do is hard too. We attract the design side, sort of the back of the house is a different animal. Easier, I think, to keep satisfied and bought into the company, and our design team is very excited. Our cabinet team, everyone's sort of bought into it. The field side is what's really challenging for us. But I also think they're not around for the cookies and the soda and the unlimited toilet paper. They're just not. They're out in the field all the time. So we have to figure out a different way to cater to their needs a little bit. And is it, take the company card and, grab your, whatever. I know one of our old employees couldn't make a company dinner, a holiday dinner. And we said, sick kid, and we said, you know what, take the company card and take your wife out to dinner. You've got awesome. A babysitter. Go do something for yourself anyway, because that's what this is about. But yeah, anyway, so it's been the demise of their leaving. We had 3 really key employees leave us this year, and all of their similar feedback was based on their feedback to me interpreted they weren't following our process. They weren't using the tools. They weren't logging into Buildertrend. Our shared drive that we use, our project management software, which is different than Buildertrend. We actually use one that's just internal communication. We just use Monday boards. It's not that all that original. A lot of people use it. They weren't using it. And so their jobs got really overwhelming and probably felt very chaotic and complicated and probably not very rewarding. But that falls to us. So we are, that goes back to our onboarding process, right? So it's like the process just begins so early on, and it has to be so intentional from your very first conversation to the very first day of work. And we're probably releasing them too soon into the field to be on their own.
That openness and transparency. I mean, honestly, Katie, it's so valuable. And I can guarantee everyone listening is going to think right now about their process and their employee retention, because it's really hard to be open, especially, right now you're just like, hey, we lost 3 key people and we've identified why. We had either, there's a lot of things. And the reason I can relate to this is because years ago, before we, started to grow, I had a key employee and lost them. Same reason is that said there was a lack of systems, lack of processes, right? And they didn't really understand how to be successful or what it took to run the project. In fact, let me turn it back. There's actually 2 good people. One of them I had on, left for that reason. New one we hired that I'd known, trained me out of college, so I knew he was really talented, came on and lost him in a month. Like didn't work. But what it came down to is the same thing, is it as, and I've shared this on the podcast before, but as I've spoken to successful businesses and, in these workshops, they always say there's 2 things, right? If you look at these successful corporations, they say employees need 2 things. They need 1, they need to believe in the product they're selling or performing or doing, right? Believe in the brand. And number 2 is they have to understand their role and how to be successful and the systems to support them, right? So if they have systems, if they understand their role and then they believe in the brand, you can be successful. The other incentives, as you mentioned, company outings and food and, pay and bonuses and healthcare and 401k. These are all great things that, yes, we all need and want. We do. But at the core of being successful as a business, you have to have systems and you have to believe in what you're doing and believe in you. And so this is why we spent so much more time on system. Here's who's responsible for this. This is where the baton goes. This is your role. This is where you hand it off. You're not responsible for this, but it doesn't mean you can't help. But at least you can come in, have structure, have the resources, have the tools, and now we can get the engine turning, we can get it operating, we start going the right direction and keep this train going where it should be.
Yeah. And so the Monday boards have been our answer. We started that just back in January.
So what are those? And what are the Monday boards?
So it's just Monday.com.
I know Monday.com, but when you say Monday boards, how do you?
So they're boards. I don't know why we say boards. I think we say boards because if we say Monday, it might sound like we're talking about Monday. The day of the week. So if we say, let's do it, put it in Monday, I think sometimes people might say, oh, well, do you actually mean what do you mean by using the word Monday? So we have all of but the boards, we have evolved, and that's actually, so we have our different projects, right? So we have our design boards, we have our construction boards, and we have our cabinet shop boards. Now, our entire team is connected. All of our processes, we've templated everything. So if we get a new cabinet order, whatever it might be, a new design-only client construction, and then everything is templated, so we know, that 20-step process maybe for just for the sake of putting in a process that we have to do from beginning to end, from the very first, and I'm sort of in the beginning. I do a lot of the sales for our company still right now. So I usually kind of take over the beginning of all of those boards, and then I'm passing them off, right? I'm tagging different people on the team. They can see they're being tagged, and then when they're done, they pass it off to the next person. And so we're doing that exact same thing of passing the baton. Not only are we loading all of our documents, there's a little bit of redundancy. A lot of the stuff will end up living in Buildertrend, or we still use Dropbox. I know Google is where it's at.
I like Dropbox.
I'm old school. So
yeah, I still use Dropbox.
I like Dropbox too.
Maybe it's because I'm an Apple person, so like the Google Drive messes everything up. It's not ideal for Apple.
Either. No.
Not that we're trying to plug Apple. I'm just saying that's our operations. Just give context.
Yeah. So. I'm an Apple fan too. My husband unfortunately just had his work truck broken into and lost his PC, and I said, "That's it. You're done. We're getting you an Apple." So we got the Apple delivered. Yeah, we got the Apple delivered this weekend. So he's nervous about how he's going to. But yeah. So anyway, so in the boards, it's just been really helpful to identify the process, who's up next, who's in charge of it. To your point, everyone, people can weigh in and help provide solutions, but it's not necessarily their space that they need to resolve if they don't have time or the bandwidth, or quite frankly, don't know how to contribute to that. That's fine. It's evolved just in the last 8 months. Our business has evolved so much more than it has probably in the last 3 to 4 years, and in terms of process.
So let me ask you this, because what's interesting about your story, Katie, is that it's not like you're in construction your entire life. Like you figured out this business, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't you own a restaurant previously or work in a restaurant? Yeah. So, I mean, what's that complexity like, just that transition from food industry that's like really difficult, customer service savvy, to now the construction side that is also challenging?
There's so many similarities. So there's something about the industries that I'm drawn to, and I don't know if it's the problem solving, if it's the high.
You just like the really hard ones, right?
Yeah, the fast pace, and then there's again, it's the creative environment. I mean, in the industry, it was the chefs, and I mean that creativity piece. And sometimes there aren't barriers of entry into our industry and the hospitality industry, right? So I'm a good example. I switched industries. I didn't pick up any additional education or schooling to do what I do now. And anyway, so sometimes with a lack of a barrier of entry, it invites, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but not only a very creative people, but just all sorts of different personalities, really. And so I don't know. I went to school. I have a sociology degree, so I guess I decided I wanted to be around people and figure people out. I do love figuring people out. And so again, it's I've worked really hard just to remove myself from the day-to-day and try to be more involved. And week to week is, the tightest I want to go, but I'd love to be in sort of bigger decisions outside of week to week, kind of more monthly and quarterly. And I'm doing a lot of planning for 2023 right now. So any sort of the day-to-day that's happening right now, I'm here to support the team on what they need on the day-to-day. But yeah, the hospitality industry, it's fast-paced. I don't know. I mean, it's fun. I miss it. It's not a fit for me anymore, but I miss, I think that's the problem solving. I keep saying that word. It might be the buzzword that I'm using today, but really enjoy problem solving and, without the conflict, right? If we could just remove the conflict.
So what are some of the similarities? I mean, having, sociology, having worked in the restaurant and food business, owned a restaurant, and now running a construction company, do you feel that there are similarities or things that prepared you, especially now being a business owner and now the new venture of launching your own product line?
It's a great question. What's not similar is the volume, right? I mean, we were focused on the profit margin is also very different. Although I spent a lot of time in this industry trying to figure out what our profit margins are supposed to be. And I don't know that I have totally nailed it, but I geeked out about it. I mean, I went down we have a local library here in St. Paul, the James J. Hill Library, and I I can't recommend to anybody listening to this podcast, figure out your resources to determine what your profit margins are, your revenues, your cost of goods sold. On a local level, it's great to know it on a national, but in what I do for a living, like you and I, Brad, will never be in competition. And even the folks here in town, Morgan from Construction to Styles, a mutual friend, we are not in competition. We very much could be in competition, but we support one another and we collaborate, which is different. But I did a lot of work early on to figure out, pull statistics through a local data to figure out what general, design build or construction or remodeling companies were reporting on their tax returns for. I couldn't see who the businesses were, so this library was able to compile a lot of these statistics for us, and it's for small business owners to sort of launch a business. Anyway, so the profit margins are different. In a restaurant, it was very funny. I would say, if the average bill, this was years ago, was $100. You think about all the things that go into that $100 from, the lights, electricity, the building roof over your head, insurance, employees, food costs, liquor costs, and the 3 to 5% is the profit margin in hospitality. So in all of that, and everyone's paid out, and the servers, get their wages, and the cooks and dishwashers get their wages. I, as the business owner, maybe went home with $3. But I had to had the liability and the stress of all of those parts that went into the $3. So that feels very different to this industry. Our profit margins are much higher for, I think, less output. I would say, though, our room for error is a lot less in what we do than in the hospitality industry. I think the expectations are very different. So if the soup was cold, we could just make a new bowl of soup and move on. In our industry, if the window is framed in the wrong spot, well,
it's a lot more expensive.
Point, we could have an 8-month problem, and we may have just learned that lesson not long ago. I will don't know. Yeah, so we had to fix that and move the window a few inches. That was thousands of dollars to do that.
See, and that's the hard part is even when you're speaking about cost plus model and just cost, right? I mean, there's always that fine line that as much as I'll communicate with the client, we need to have a contingency line or something that because, for example, drywall, I may have a bid for $50,000 to do all your drywall in this entire home, but there's always going to be punch, and you can't just sit here and backcharge a winter. No one's ever going to come. There is part of building your home. There are touch-ups and adjustments and a ding from someone walking by at the tool belt or something. I mean, this is just part of the process, and communicating that here's what that's for. But then there's that gray area too, right, where, as you mentioned, it's well, did we not manage this right? And the client's why is this my cost if you didn't see this, if you didn't manage this? And so there's always costs that we have to eat, and we have to be really careful. And this is why it's so important, to your point, Katie, that we understand our cost and, what is it, to bring a client, that lead to reality. What's that costing me for time and marketing budget? And, what is my job costing, and understanding, what the risk I have as a builder, how much can I spend in warranty? How much could I spend in just the nuance of building this house that I can't really pin on the client, that's kind of internal, whether my team's learning as they go or, we're making mistakes. So.
And sometimes just doing right by the client, right? I mean, and sometimes it's all of that's out the window, and you just have a really great client. They played by all of your rules. They paid on time. They didn't do any start stops. They're patient. They understood delays. And then in the end, you have to go in and fix a few things, and you do your walkthrough. It's probably, we have a situation right now where we had a couple sconce lights hung in drastically in the wrong place. I would say off by 10 to 12 inches in height. And, that's not just moving a light. I mean, you have to get everybody back in to move those lights. And that could be a few $1,000s worth of work to get all of that done. And then, our time to manage it and manage 3 or 4 different subs that have to come back through the house. But we have in Buildertrend our signed off electrical plan that we did that very clearly indicated the height of those sconces, which is exactly where they're hung, and the client signed off with their digital signature on that electrical plan. So we did nothing wrong. We even then go back to our email thread, which we have learned the email documentation is less valuable because I think there's so much correspondence through email that the clients forget, or there's, but it didn't feel formal because we were just talking about ideas. So that's a huge lesson, by the way. I'm getting off track, but a couple years ago, we learned every single decision lives in Buildertrend. And if folks are listening, don't use Buildertrend, find some other software to load, again, be it Dropbox or some other Google, and have clients sign off on it. Every single thing it'll save. So much headache down the road. But these clients were our perfect client. We couldn't have molded a better situation, and it just felt so heart-wrenching to go back to them and say, is this going to be a change of $2,000 or whatever that number would be to have these moved? So we're going to move them for them, and we're not charging them. Because in the end, it'll be a referral. We'll be able to go in and have great marketing opportunity for photographs. I mean, there's just so much more to come out of the relationship, and preserving that relationship means so much more than being right in that scenario. Now, nevertheless, they're fully aware that, we are sharing the documentation, just so this is how we got to the height of the sconces. But
I love that. And we do the same thing. And I think it's really important. This is something I learned early in my career, is that those things do come up, that we'll take care of her in good faith, or, reputation, or just for good clients. Like, we have some of those, that we want to do good for. And what I found too to be successful is that it's not only important to communicate, well, here's how we got here, but we're going to take care of it, but also here's a $0 change order that shows like the cost. It's going to cost you $0. Here's the credit. It's just filling that emotional bank account, because even if things could change maybe months down the road, hey, they could at least see that there's some good faith you put in, Katie. But I mean, with all this said, I mean, you've ran an amazing business. You have an amazing brand on social media. You've done such a great job with that. And your designs, we're so excited about your Vanity line that's coming out. So outside of all the complication you're dealing with, I mean, what do you do for fun outside of all these businesses you're running?
Travel. So our family, we love to travel. And I was just sharing with my husband the other day, our youngest he'll be 14 this week. So we're close. We did leave all, and then we have 2 girls that are older than that. So we left them all alone. I don't know if I should admit this, but the first night by themselves, we were still driving distance, but we thought we're driving distance away. We can come back if anything happens. We're probably a few years away from comfortably leaving everybody, but then our oldest will be off at college by then. But really like 2 years, or we can come and go
amazing.
Whenever we want. It's like, it's something that I never even thought about having. So traveling is always at the top of our list. Ideally, taking like 4, 5, 6 vacations a year would be ideal. And they don't have to be big, elaborate vacations, but maybe it's like a weekend in New York or a weekend to Chicago. That is where my cup is filled. I get all of my inspiration. I unwind. All the things happen on just a quick weekend away sometimes. I love to cook. I cook for my family. Probably 5 nights a week. Sunday is my favorite day to sit down and meal prep. So I make, pull up my cookbooks. I make a grocery list. My son, the one I just mentioned, he'll be 14. He's very active in that. So we'll make the list together. We go grocery shopping together every Sunday. He made dinner last night for everybody. So I'm his sous chef. Amazing. I'm a part-time sous chef, or the cleaner-upper, if you will. Behind him, we had fried buttermilk chicken sandwiches last night, which is really good. And I botched that. If he listened to me say that, he would say, "Mom, they're not fried buttermilk. It's like Tennessee hot chicken something or other." But yeah. And then I love to knit. Actually, I learned that probably 25, 30 years ago, how to knit. And again, that's like a textural fiber thing that I find a ton of creativity, and it translates through in some of the textiles we work with, the rugs that we select, the carpeting that we work with. A lot of those textiles transfer. So we'll be on vacation near an ocean in a yarn shop, maybe buying a cookbook on my way home.
Well, you painted the perfect picture there, and I know you shared your upcoming and exciting news, which launched today. Congrats on that. So where can our listeners find you and order the new vanities?
Okay, so our website is easy, jkath.com, and then our vanity collection there's a tab on our website for that. And then Instagram is a great place to follow behind the scenes and day to day, which is just Jkath_Design Build.
Well, that's amazing, Katie. Thank you so much for making time today. And I'm super excited for your new venture. You guys are going to do awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for chatting. It was fun catching up again.
So thank you all for tuning into the podcast today. And just as a recap, if you check the show notes, they're just going to have all the links for the topics that we discuss. And also one of our favorite features now is the chapters that go through the conversation. So if there's certain topics you want to revisit or listen to, they're outlined by the time that we discuss those. And again, we can't thank you enough for all of your support. Please make sure and download our podcast, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you download your podcast.